Roald Dahl, September 13, 1916, November 23, 1990, was a British novelist, short story writer, poet, screenwriter, and fighter pilot. His books have sold over 200 million copies worldwide. Born in Wales to Norwegian parents, Dahl served in the Royal Air Force during the Second World War, in which he became a flying ace and intelligence officer, rising to the rank of acting wing commander. He rose to prominence in the 1940s with works for both children and adults, and he became one of the world's best-selling authors. He has been referred to as one of the greatest storytellers for children of the 20th century. His awards for contribution to literature include the 1983 World Fantasy Award for Life Achievement, and the British Book Awards Children's Author of the Year in 1990. In 2008, The Times placed Dahl 16th on its list of the 50 greatest British writers since 1945. Dahl's short stories are known for their unexpected endings and his children's books for their unsentimental, macabre, often darkly comic content, featuring villainous adult enemies of the child characters. His books champion the kind-hearted, and feature an underlying warm sentiment. Dahl's works for children include James and the Giant Peach, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Matilda, The Witches, Fantastic Mr. Fox, The BFG, The Twits and George's Marvelous Medicine. His adult works include Tales of the Unexpected. Early life: Roald Dahl was born in 1916 at Villa Marie, Fairwater Road, in Llandaff, Cardiff, Wales, to Norwegian parents, Harold Dahl and Sophie Magdalene Dahl, née Hesselberg. Dahl's father had immigrated to Britain from Sarpsborg, Norway, and settled in Cardiff in the 1880s. His mother came over and married his father in 1911. Dahl was named after the polar explorer Roald Amundsen, a Norwegian national hero. His first language was Norwegian, which he spoke at home with his parents and his sisters Astrid, Alfhild and Else. Dahl and his sisters were raised in the Lutheran faith, and were baptized at the Norwegian Church, Cardiff, where their parents worshipped. In 1920, when Dahl was 3 years old, his 7-year-old sister, Astrid, died from appendicitis. Weeks later, his father died of pneumonia at the age of 57 while on a fishing trip in the Antarctic. With the option of returning to Norway to live with relatives, Dahl's mother decided to remain in Wales, because Harold had wished to have their children educated in British schools, which he considered the world's best. Dahl first attended the Cathedral School, Llandaff. At the age of 8, he and 4 of his friends, one named Thwaites, were caned by the headmaster after putting a dead mouse in a jar of gobstoppers at the local sweet shop, which was owned by a mean and loathsome old woman called Mrs. Pratchett. This was known among the 5 boys as the Great Mouse Plot of 1924. A favorite sweet among British schoolboys between the 2 world wars, Dahl would later refer to gobstoppers in his literary creation, Everlasting Gobstopper. Thereafter, he transferred to a boarding school in England, St. Peter's in Weston-super-Mare. Roald's parents had wanted him to be educated at an English public school and, because of a then regular ferry link across the Bristol Channel, this proved to be the nearest. His time at St. Peter's was an unpleasant experience for him. He was very homesick and wrote to his mother every week but never revealed to her his unhappiness, being under the pressure of school censorship. Only after her death in 1967 did he find out that she had saved every single one of his letters, in small bundles held together with green tape. Dahl wrote about his time at St. Peter's in his autobiography Boy, Tales of Childhood. From 1929, He attended Repton School in Derbyshire, where, according to Boy, Tales of Childhood, a friend named Michael was viciously caned by headmaster Geoffrey Fisher, who later became the Archbishop of Canterbury and went on to crown Queen Elizabeth II in 1953. However, according to Dahl's biographer Jeremy Tregloan, the caning took place in May 1933, a year after Fisher had left Repton, and the headmaster concerned was in fact J.T. Christie, Fisher's successor. This caused Dahl to have doubts about religion and even about God. He was never seen as a particularly talented writer in his school years, with one of his English teachers writing in his school report, "I have never met anybody who so persistently writes words meaning the exact opposite of what is intended." Dahl was exceptionally tall, reaching 6 feet 6 inches, 1.98 meters, in adult life. He excelled at sports, being made captain of the school fives and squash teams, and also playing for the football team. As well as having a passion for literature, he also developed an interest in photography and often carried a camera with him. During his years at Repton, Cadbury, the chocolate company, would occasionally send boxes of new chocolates to the school to be tested by the pupils. Dahl would dream of inventing a new chocolate bar that would win the praise of Mr. Cadbury himself, and this proved the inspiration for him to write his third children's book, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, 1964, and to include references to chocolate in other children's books. Throughout his childhood and adolescent years, Dahl spent the majority of his summer holidays with his mother's family in Norway, and wrote about many happy memories from those expeditions in Boy, Tales of Childhood, such as when he replaced the tobacco in his half-sister's fiancé's pipe with goat droppings. He only experienced one unhappy memory of his holidays in Norway at around the age of 8. When his adenoids were removed by a doctor. His childhood and first job selling kerosene in Midsummer Norton and surrounding villages in Somerset are subjects in Boy, Tales of Childhood. After finishing his schooling, in August 1934 Dahl crossed the Atlantic on the RMS Nova Scotia and hiked through Newfoundland with the Public Schools Exploring Society. In July 1934, Dahl joined the Shell Petroleum Company. Following 2 years of training in the United Kingdom, he was transferred to first Mombasa, Kenya, then to Dar es Salaam, Tanganyika, now Tanzania. Along with the only 2 other Shell employees in the entire territory, he lived in luxury in the Shell house outside Dar es Salaam, with a cook and personal servants. While out on assignments supplying oil to customers across Tanganyika, he encountered black mambas and lions, among other wildlife. Fight a race. In August 1939, as World War II loomed, plans were made to round up the hundreds of Germans in Dar es Salaam. Dahl was made a lieutenant in the King's African Rifles, commanding a platoon of Askaris, indigenous troops serving in the colonial army. In November 1939, Dahl joined the Royal Air Force, RAF, as an aircraftman with service number 774,022. After a 600-mile, 970 kilometers, car journey from Dar es Salaam to Nairobi, he was accepted for flight training with 16 other men, of whom only 3 others survived the war. With 7 hours and 40 minutes experience in a de Havilland Tiger Moth, he flew solo. Dahl enjoyed watching the wildlife of Kenya during his flights. He continued to advanced flying training in Iraq, at RAF Hanaya, 50 miles, 80 kilometers, west of Baghdad. He was commissioned pilot officer on August 24, 1940. Following 6 months training on Hawker Hearts, Dahl was made an acting pilot officer. He was assigned to number 80 Squadron RAF, flying obsolete Gloucester Gladiators, the last biplane fighter aircraft used by the RAF. Dahl was surprised to find that he would not receive any specialized training in aerial combat, or in flying gladiators. On September 19, 1940, Dahl was ordered to fly his Gladiator from Abu Su'ayran, Egypt, onto a marina to refuel, and again to Fuka in Libya for a second refueling. From there he would fly to 80 Squadron's Ford airstrip 30 miles, 48 kilometers, south of Sumatra. On the final leg, he could not find the airstrip and, running low on fuel and with night approaching, he was forced to attempt a landing in the desert. The undercarriage hit a boulder and the aircraft crashed, fracturing his skull, smashing his nose and temporarily blinding him. He managed to drag himself away from the blazing wreckage and passed out. Later, he wrote about the crash in his first published work. Dahl was rescued and taken to a first aid post in Sumatra, where he regained consciousness, but not his sight, and was then taken by train to the Royal Navy Hospital in Alexandria. There he fell in and out of love with a nurse, Mary Welland. A RAF inquiry into the crash revealed that the location to which he had been told to fly was completely wrong, and he had mistakenly been sent instead to the no man's land between the Allied and Italian forces. In February 1941, Dahl was discharged from hospital and passed fully fit for flying duties. By this time, 80 Squadron had been transferred to the Greek campaign and based at Eleusina, near Athens. The squadron was now equipped with Hawker Hurricanes. Dahl flew a replacement Hurricane across the Mediterranean Sea in April 1941, after 7 hours flying Hurricanes. By this stage in the Greek campaign, the RAF had only 18 combat aircraft in Greece, 14 Hurricanes and 4 Bristol Blenheim light bombers. Dahl saw his first aerial combat on April 15, 1941, while flying alone over the city of Chalcis. He attacked 6 Junkers Ju-88s that were bombing ships and shot one down. On 16 April in another air battle, he shot down another Ju-88. On April 20, 1941, Dahl took part in the Battle of Athens, alongside the highest-scoring British Commonwealth ace of World War II, Pat Paddle, and Dahl's friend David Koch. Of 12 Hurricanes involved, 5 were shot down and 4 of their pilots killed, including Paddle. Greek observers on the ground counted 22 German aircraft downed, but because of the confusion of the aerial engagement, none of the pilots knew which aircraft they had shot down. Dahl described it as an endless blur of enemy fighters whizzing towards me from every side. In May, as the Germans were pressing on Athens, Dahl was evacuated to Egypt. His squadron was reassembled in Haifa. From there, Dahl flew sorties every day for a period of 4 weeks, shooting down a Vichy French Air Force Patez 63 on 8 June and another Ju-88 on 15 June, but he then began to get severe headaches that caused him to black out. He was invalided home to Britain. Though at this time Dahl was only a pilot officer on probation, in September 1941 he was simultaneously confirmed as a pilot officer and promoted to War Substantive Flying Officer.